Well, after that exciting announcement about Rio, Thomas, thank you for that. I've been asked by Arturo to give you a little bit of brief on something that's truly a brave new world. It affects all of you and will continue to affect all of you in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead. And that's the brave new world of AI in the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry. It's already a big part of our lives, whether we like it or not. It's inevitable, whether we like it or not. But of course, when we first heard about AI, we were embracing the promise of it. Because after all, it was amazing technology, and we could see what it could do. But now we also have to recognize the threat of it. Now, if you ask CEOs or CFOs, and I shared a conversation with Thomas last night about this, about 90% of them would tell you they think it's a great idea. And why? In many cases, because it will save time, it will save money in certain jobs. If you ask the employees, they'll tell you they're afraid of it and they don't understand it and they think they're going to lose their jobs. And there may not even be a middle ground yet, because the technology is dependent on one thing that we haven't done yet. And that if the industry and the society doesn't do it yet, it's not going to work well for anybody. And that's trust. And that's verification. And that's certification of information. Yes, it can be a financial windfall for a number of companies that can figure out jobs that can be done by AI that might free their employees to actually have conversations with people they couldn't otherwise have. But in the end, that's not necessarily going to happen. One airline the other day, American Airlines, just fired 695 frontline customer service agents because they think the answer is AI. Try finding some help at the airport. Not a good idea. I'll give you another example. And yes, there is going to be an information revolution, but right now, especially in the United States, where we have an election coming up, we're already seeing a disinformation revolution with nobody verifying anything. AI right now is the wild, wild west, and there is no sheriff. I'll give you an example that happened at an airline recently, and it ended up in court. There was a passenger on Air Canada who had a problem, and he called Air Canada, and he was told he had to go online. When he went online, he was directed and steered without any other option to a chatbot. And the chatbot gave him information that was so misleading, so inaccurate, and so wrong that it cost him a lot of money, and it completely disenfranchised him, and he never got on his flight, never got to where he needed to go. And what did he do? He sued Air Canada. And Air Canada's response was quite remarkable. Their argument was that the chatbot was a single, unitary legal entity that had its own personality and its own behavior, and that Air Canada couldn't be responsible for what its chatbot said. Do you think that flew in court? Thankfully, it did not. Air Canada lost the case in about 5 seconds. But the point is, they made the claim that the chatbot was independent when, in fact, all the information that the chatbot was given came from AI and algorithms provided by, guess who? Air Canada, without any supervision or verification. And so we go back to trust, and we go back to the flow of information. I'm going to tell you a figure that's quite scary, and I'll tell you how it got implemented. Right now, 10% of the books that are travel books, guidebooks, that are sold on Amazon are AI. The authors don't exist. And there's no verification of the information. A very good friend of mine, her name is Pauline Fromer, of course the Fromer's Guide, discovered one that was ripped off from her. And it was sold freely on Amazon. And in her original chapter that she wrote, it was about the pleasures of traveling during the fall. In the AI version, it was an entire chapter on how to avoid falling. Think about that. And yet people are buying these books because they look good, they appear to be genuine, and they're not. And for those people who are the end users of this, or the end beneficiaries of this in the hospitality industry, you need to be aware of this, because people are now beginning to depend on this at their own detriment. It was very cute to see Arturo do the avatar yesterday, but I can tell you right now, if I went to CHAT GPT today and said, give me a story on Peru that Peter Greenberg might write, it would do it. Would it be right? Would it be correct? Would it be accurate? Nobody seems to care. Well, I'm a content creator. I care. You are content users. You should care. And your customers should care, because otherwise they're going to be misdirected. Now, I'm not telling you the technology is terrible. Not in the least. I'm telling you that if it's not managed carefully and managed without a CFO approach about cost as opposed to worth, you're all going to be in trouble. That's the problem right now. In the hospitality industry, it's too much of a CFO approach about what it costs versus what it's worth. But when it comes to information and truth in reporting, the problem is there's no middle ground. I remember a couple of years ago, before we even heard the term AI, the folks at Hilton invited me to their headquarters to see their test lab, where they were developing what they thought was the new concepts in room design and room function. And what came out of that? Some good things, right? The idea that you could open your hotel key with your phone. I mean, your hotel room. That was your hotel key with your phone. That works until, of course, your cell phone battery dies. But it was a good concept. But they came up with another concept, which you may have heard about. It didn't last very long, and the minute I saw it, I said, this is not going to work. They came up with a robot. Anybody remember the robot? The robot that was designed to take the place of a room service waiter or anybody else working at the hotel to deliver things to your room. Within the first 3 months of the robot test, people were in the hallways of hotels with baseball bats beating the crap out of robots. In fact, one robot, and I'm not making this up, was caught by itself trying to escape from the hotel. So I'm all in favor of tests, but I'm a bigger fan of application, an application with common sense. So as each of you in the hotel business is approached in this wonderful brave new world concept of AI, and with the ability to do amazing things, you need to ask the question, who's controlling it? Who's vetting the information, right? Because it comes in various forms. The avatar that Arturo was talking about, or the misuse of information that just happened with Air Canada. And will mistakes be made along the way? Yes. Can we undeniably rely upon the technology without that verification? We do so at our own peril. Now, we could probably identify, and many of you in this room may have already identified, the actual functions that a chatbot or AI can do that could literally free up frontline people to do customer relations in a great way and solve problems. But I've yet to see it. I've yet to see it actually manifested in a way that works. So here we are, the brave new world of AI, and it's changing as I speak right now. There's probably a book being written by someone, not me, with my name on it right now. So for content creators, of course, that scares me. But for content readers and for content users, it should also scare you. So you have the enviable position, or perhaps the unenviable position, of being in control of how you use it before it uses you. You need to set the standards. You need to make the decisions at the managerial level as to what constitutes an acceptable form of AI. What is worth it? Okay, that's one consideration. But what's the benefit? And what's the actual cost in terms of human interaction? I'm a huge fan of a word that starts with a C. It's called conversation. Every time I go to an airport and I see a kiosk, I run. I was at an airport the other day. I'll name names. It was United Airlines at New Orleans. And I walked up to the front counter to check in for my flight. And there was nobody else in line. I was in first class. And the guy at the counter said, oh no, you have to go to the kiosk. I said, no, I'm talking to you. He said, no, the kiosk can answer all your questions. I said, no, it can't. He said, yes, it can. I said, okay, go show me. He walked over to me, took me over to the kiosk, and 8 minutes later he said, we should go back to the counter. We should all go back to the counter. The beauty of travel is when you have conversations. The beauty of travel is when you develop relationships. The beauty of travel is when you maintain those relationships because people want to come back. In the hotel business, you don't make money when somebody stays once and as a commodity as opposed to a person. You make money when they stay more than once and tell all their friends. And what are they going to tell their friends about? About the person who helped them, the person who helped them, the relationship they built. You know, there are certain things that cannot be substituted by AI, and that's the human connection. It's the emotional quotient that makes travel such a wonderful experience. Now, if you want to know what time the train is leaving for Philadelphia, go online. If you want to know where to sit on the train, talk to somebody. And you better talk to somebody who you know is a trusted source. And that goes back to what I said at the beginning of this talk. It gets down to trust. So, until we come up with a better solution, who are you going to basically enable to be your chief trust officer in this brave new world of AI? Because it crosses every single platform of the travel business, of the travel experience, and of course, the future of the entire industry. If you don't put that person in order, and you don't train them, and you don't give them the ability to separate the truth from the fiction, you do so at your own peril. Again, nothing against the technology. I love sitting in my car and do a hands-free phone call. Now that's not AI, but it's part of it. That's okay. But I also know that if I tell it to call somebody, I was the person who inputted that information in the phone to tell them the number of the person to call. And right now, today alone, I received 5 voice-generated phone calls from people I don't know, pretending to be people I knew. And I actually engaged them in a conversation for about 10 seconds until I realized this is all AI generated, and was going to lead nowhere except bad things. So remember, technology can be great unless it's in the hands of the wrong people. Just ask Robert Oppenheimer. So as we begin this world of AI, I just want to share with you that next year in Rio, I hope I'll be real and not an avatar. I hope you will be too. And I hope that the bottom line is we can continue doing what we're doing right here in Lima today, and that's having face-to-face personal conversations, using the technology to get us to those conversations and not replacing them. Thank you very much.